Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Min from the IdeaLab at Nobody Studios. It's that time again. It's Tuesday, 4 p.m. The times are available. If you're new to the show, every week I run a little session around ideas that have come in recently to the IdeaLab, and we explore those ideas. We meet the idea champions and have a good old chat. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to my lovely guest today. Hey, Tejas, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. It's good to have a local Londoner on the call. I think you're the first.
It's good to be here. And of course, on a very special day for everyone. Happy Valentine's to everyone who's listening.
Ah, that's really good. Yes, I must go and get that rose after this show for sure. Yes. For our audience, Tejas, can we start off with a little introduction? I know you've done so many different things in your life, from your entrepreneurship stuff, your thought leader work, etc., and then just having a passion for looking for gaps in the market and going after those. So, summarize Tejas Mistry for me and the audience.
So I think, like my profile briefly said, I've been a kind of a math geek kind of character all my life. After kind of a brief career and academics in mechanical engineering out of New York. I moved here back to the UK actually, which is where my parents had retired. Um, and engineering was a tough thing here as manufacturers been dying for many, many years.
Mhm.
So I kind of took a leap into the world of IT. And it's something I used to do whilst I was at university, kind of help desk, things like that. So it
Mhm.
came quite naturally to me and kind of embarked on this journey that's taken me through software, through hardware, all of those kind of various infrastructure, as it says in my profile.
Sure.
And then eventually I kind of opened or started a company called Web Exposure, which is a small development company. But what I learned was in a world where everyone was doing kind of static websites, especially about 20 years ago,
Mm.
I was more interested in creating solutions as opposed to just a site,
Yeah.
something that was more interactive. And that was my passion, and that is my passion. Um, I remember still doing a website for a personal stylist, and we came up with the idea of stickability. This was literally 20 years ago.
Okay,
A
sure.
database-driven, content-managed website where
Yeah.
in the background, once she'd taken the clients to her on a shopping experience. She would take all these pictures, what clothes went with what,
Yeah, yeah.
top and all of that.
Mm,
And
mm.
then she uploaded this all onto this client portal,
Okay.
which they could then log into. So they could see maybe even, 6 months, 9 months later,
Yeah.
exactly how much they'd spent, where they'd been. It was like a history of their shopping
Yeah,
trip, right?
yeah.
And so it's how my brain works. I think
Love it.
it might have been Bill Gates who said, if you want something done quickly, give it to a lazy person. I'm that guy, right? I'm always looking for a shortcut. I'm always looking for a better way of doing things.
Yeah.
And over the years, of course, I've created lots and lots of different solutions for companies from Unilever to Apple and all these various companies. And I come across these kind of, if you will, shortfalls, right, in this world. Um, so I always think, how can I automate this? How can I make it easier for everyone?
Yeah. Yeah.
So whilst doing it for everyone else, I've done it for myself also.
Yeah.
So that's my journey, I suppose, in all of this, all the way to where we are today, which is kind of Shoppinghood and the all-inclusive idea, etc. And
Yeah,
then
which we'll get
many
into
more.
in a moment. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, fascinating ideas. Before we get onto that, one of the questions I always like to ask my guests is where do you get your ideas? What are you doing when you're like, come on, surely someone solved this and they haven't, and then you come up with your idea. and I have my four choices, and you might come up with a fifth one, which is it when you're having a shower, on the loo, going for a walk or a run, or in an innovation meeting, you know?
I would say generally it's through the night, I would say,
Okay,
typically. I'm not a big sleeper.
okay,
Um, so, and I think of my own challenges, how can I make things better, etc. So I think I would say probably in bed, I would
okay. That's a new one. We've not had that one. I'm gonna put that on the list
say.
and add like a fifth option
Yeah,
for next week. We'll keep going. Fantastic.
absolutely,
So
absolutely.
let's deep dive into the submissions that you made to the studio last week, I believe. So if I press this button over here, so we're going to
Mm.
cover two, and the first one, and having sort of worked in a large corporate organization, but also personally, I think used my fair share of print cartridges over the last few years, and for my own business. Yeah, it's good. It's quite an interesting model. It's where the printer is pretty much next to nothing, and then if you sort of tot up a little bit like buying a car, a 5 liter car, and you're like, yeah, that wasn't too bad. It only cost me 10 grand, and then you find out you're actually spending that on petrol, every month on top. But why don't you take us through what was the inspiration for inclusive, and what did you see as the challenge, and then we'll come on to how you think we might be able to solve it.
So basically, I came across the world of what's known as managed print services.
Mhm.
About 12 years ago, we were doing a lot of development work for Samsung,
Okay.
who were trying to create a managed print service, if you will. And for those of you who don't quite know it, when a printer leaves the manufacturer, it ends up in one of two environments. It
Mhm.
either ends up in a transactional environment. This is essentially people buying a printer as and when they need it, and
Sure.
then buying the ink as and when they need it. And typically
Mhm.
that device comes with a year's warranty, which is all
Right.
fine if you don't have that many devices. But in the larger environments, if you think about schools, law firms, where there might be 10, 20, 30, 40 devices,
Mm,
those devices need to be managed, right? For business continuity, for safety, security, all of those kind of things.
mm.
So only 30% of the market is in that kind of managed print
Wow.
service world, you know?
Okay.
So, and those are people who are in the know because they'll do their research, it'll go to tender, et cetera, right? Whereas the 70% of the market that just buys transactionally,
They do.
uh, getting hammered because the printer is given away.
Yeah.
People, oddly enough, never look at anything other than is it the right color for my office? Is it the right size? Is it
Yeah.
compact? All of those kind of things, and they go away and buy this printer for, like you said, man, next to nothing.
Yeah.
And then the first time they have to go buy ink, it's like, what? It's, the ink cartridges are twice as much as the printer itself.
Yeah.
So it's a real shock, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of came across this whole idea of managed print, and what I realized, whether the device was transactional or a managed print device, what I learned was the entire supply chain in that world, even in this digital world and time, was quite reactive. So it's
Mhm.
only when the machine said low toner alert did the
That's
whole
right. Oh, yes.
market reacted to it, right?
Yeah,
The whole
and then you have a
time.
heart attack as well, I remember, where it's like, "We've got to get a proposal out," and then you get that dreaded low toner, and you go and have a look in the supplies, and, that one special toner you need is the one that's, got that 3-week wait list or whatever before, you can get one.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. And but because whether it was a managed device or a transactional device, I learned that the entire supply chain, regardless, reacted to this device, right?
Mm.
And I thought, well, that's a bit like driving around with nothing other than it's just saying you're running out of petrol, right?
Yeah.
Or you run out of petrol without any forecast, right? So
Mm.
I actually built a forecast engine, treating a
Okay.
printer like a car.
Right.
So we would watch you simply print and go, oh, you're doing 1,000 pages a day.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. Your cartridge actually only has 15,000 pages, a yield, which
Mm.
means mathematically for a month, you're going to typically need at least two cartridges. It was as simple as that. But
Sure.
that eradicated 80 to 90% of reactive purchasing, you know, and
Yeah.
people were able to. And of course, because they were buying a larger quantity, they could now go to a supplier and say, well, I'm going to buy 4 months worth. I can get a better price, right? And of
Yeah.
course, these guys, as in the suppliers, were quite happy to do that
Mm,
if they could get repeat business out of this, right?
mm,
So that's how I kind of got into it. But all in all, what I've learned from a kind of a line that we heard a few years ago, I heard, which is, you know, ink can be original ink can be more expensive per gram than
right.
Chanel number 5, right? This
Wow.
is a very popular notion
Okay.
in
Well, I
our
know
world.
what I'm getting Mrs. Min for Valentine's Day now. Thank you.
So, I thought, if that's the case, and and I know, and in this, and especially in the Western world, that we'll do everything in our power to go to confused.com, compare the market to save a
Mm,
few pounds in
yeah.
the world of insurance and stuff, right?
Mm, mm,
Well, some people are buying thousands of pounds worth of ink, and
mm,
wouldn't it be nice without even the intelligence of whether you bought correctly, i.e. the device, or whether you bought the correct device for the device, without even knowing that, wouldn't it be nice to know that you're actually buying your ink at the
mm,
best price possible? And
mm.
and that's really the first motive and kind of goal of all inclusive, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah, yeah.
comparison site based on your requirements. But then I think the future of all inclusive is really to take someone from just buying cheap ink or cheaper ink to, is it the right device for your environment? Are you doing the right thing?
Okay.
To maybe even the future where we're taking them to paperless, right? How do we take you all the way to paperless, right? I mean, quick example of this is, we're pitching for some business right now.
Sure.
Uh, they have 100 wrong devices. Those
Right.
100 wrong devices are costing them literally just in ink 6,000 odd pounds, 5,500 or something pounds a month on ink.
Whoa. Okay.
Would you believe that we've gone back to that customer and said, we can replace all your devices,
Mm,
give you the same amount of ink, give you better commercial machines? I mean, they were ordering 1,600 cartridges a year, right? With our device, the recommended one, they'll order one which will last 2 years.
okay.
So commercial devices and all with the new hardware, support, service, parts, labor, and ink, it's going to cost them, I think, less than 4,000.
So this is a combo hardware, software deal
Yeah.
together, kind of totally managed.
Yeah, so I think with all inclusive, I think the transactional world that just misbuys, if you will, right? Because it's no one's got the time, or but it's costing them way more than their car insurance savings that they're spending quite a lot of time trying to get a better deal
Yeah,
on, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
this is
totally.
thousands of pounds. So I think from a comparative perspective, like I said, I think the lowest hanging fruit is give them cheaper ink, and then kind of over time educate them, get them better devices, cheaper to run, all of that. And then over time again, take them to
Sure.
that journey if they desire to
Yeah.
the world of paperless.
Yeah, yeah, got it. And for people listening in, be great to get your comments if you've kind of had some of these issues in the past, be that as a personal user or working for an organization. If you can sort of relate to this or have any questions for Tejas, please feel free to add them in the comments. So Tejas, on this one, eh, what would be the next step for you? I mean, what are there any sort of barriers to entry here? Do you need to kind of set specific things up? What do you see as you know what does it take to move this to the next level?
Um, I think the barrier to entry is always almost innovation in itself
Okay,
requires uh, effort, right? A lot of people selling ink and a lot of people selling rinsers have made millions out of doing so,
of
right?
course, yeah,
And it works for them that the audience is none the wiser on what they're buying and how they're buying it. So it almost works for them. Um, and everyone's kind of, this is my piece of the pie and I'm happy with it, right? This is bringing the world into a larger a better place where it's more efficient, right? It's kind of um, and also the big barrier, probably the biggest barrier to entry is clean data, right?
Mm,
The reason you're able to do what we're able to do in the world of finance and the world of insurance and all of that is
mm,
finance is way ahead in terms of clean data,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Whereas to be able to say, I have this printer, it does this, and I'm looking for this kind of it's an effort, right? Let's just
mm,
say it's an effort,
mm,
and the model itself, of course, whether it's an affiliate model or whether it's a kind of a pay per lead model, whatever that may be,
yeah,
it's still some kind of technology effort, right?
yeah,
And it always needs someone to bring both sides, the buyer and sellers together, right, in a
yeah,
marketplace. And that's not always an easy thing, right? So I think that's always been the challenge, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And
The market is big enough, obviously, right? The frequency of purchases are big enough, I think. But it's that reluctance because ink sellers are selling ink and printers are, but you need a technology expert and a data expert
yeah,
and a software
yeah.
maybe expert to bring it all together.
Okay. And do you see the marketplace being corporate organizations or individual users for both?
I think anyone can use it,
Mhm,
absolutely anyone. 'Cause
mm,
and remember now, although we can go to Boots and print a picture and stuff, we
mm,
can do that at home with these laser printers, right?
true.
And yeah, I think consumption's change. You're, doing more media-rich content at home. You're capable of doing so. The iPad is so accessible to people of all ages, and then to be able to print your creation and then put it up on your fridge and all of those
Yeah,
things
yeah,
because they're more accessible, I think.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't see print dropping off the kind of face of this earth right at
yeah.
anytime soon.
So I think you've got a potential buyer already. Hey, Christina. Uh, Christina will use it in a heartbeat. So there you go. There's your first
Thank you very
order.
much.
I'll provide Christina's details for a little commission later on for you. So that's been super interesting. And let's. Oh, here we go. Here's a question for you. Hey, Caesar. What effect do you think ChatGTP will have on all this? Interesting. I'm not quite sure of what the angle is with ChatGTP and ink.
Yeah, I mean, well, at least for now, I don't think ChatGPT. Well, firstly, it doesn't have access to commerce and e-commerce, especially
Mm,
because the data it queries or has learned from kind of stopped in 2021. So that's one thing. Um, but you are absolutely right. Anything that is, I think the bigger question probably, or the barrier to that is going to be, you can't ask a question that you don't think is a question, if that makes
mm,
sense.
mhm.
Uh, you know, it, it- it's one of these things. It's like, again, going by the example I gave you,
Yeah,
you wouldn't believe this is a group of these are 80 sites, right? It's a 110 million pound revenue business,
yeah.
and their procurement person did not know that paying 6,000 pounds for ink
Mm,
wasn't, they're paying three times what they should be paying.
yeah,
The equivalent ink that we've quoted is, I think, around 1,500 pounds. So
yeah,
it's about four times, right? It's
yeah.
the
Because
only
you're
reason it's
benchmarking what
4,000.
you paid before, right? And if you've been paying premium crazy prices, then that's kind of where
Yeah,
your it's at, right? So
absolutely. And unless you go to the comparison world or
mm,
you have the
mm,
inclination to go to the comparison world,
yeah,
um, you don't know, right?
yeah, yeah.
Hopefully that's answered your question,
I, I
Caesar.
has. So let's move on to your second wonderful idea, which uh, which again looks super, super interesting. So why don't you take us through this one, please, Tejas?
Um,
And what was the
so,
inspiration for this one?
uh, so, so I've been watching. I live in Northwest London, and I've been watching. here in the UK, of course, but also I would say probably also in the US. The two kind of main markets that I have visibility of because of travel and where I've lived. I've been watching the high street die slowly but surely,
Mm.
right? And
Mhm.
I've been part of reward programs and large organizations like, I mentioned Unilever
Yeah.
earlier. Um, and they have the ability and the access to the know-how, tech, all of that to be able to create and deliver a level of stickability, right? Loyalty cards, and they can throw a lot of money at that, right?
Mm.
And they can kind of put a campaign out there. They can monitor this multi-channel campaign that they'll have. They'll be able to really decipher who's come, where have they come from, what have they bought, all of that kind of stuff, right?
Sure.
And they can do that with you and your kind of, let's not call it an ID card because that's controversial as we know,
Of
but
course, yeah.
that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Um, Whereas your day-to-day product and service provider on the high street who's really struggling, your off licenses, your tailor, your barber, right? Your local accountant, your local small
Mm.
two-man law firm, right?
Mm.
All of those guys.
Mm.
Um, who really have access to the local community, but they're at the mercy of the local community, i.e., you choose to walk into their shop or not, right?
Of course,
But
yeah.
that is such a tragedy, right? Because I'm a very kind of talkative person. I'm very extroverted and I say hello to everyone.
Sure.
Wherever I buy things, I say, hi, what's your name? What do I live here? That kind of stuff. But
Right.
that's not everyone,
No.
And the
Mm.
whole idea of Shop and Hood was to give that local guy with the small business who might have lots of people go through his store, but definitely have 50, 100, 200 people that he'll see faces of, but he might not know all of them.
Mm.
And this is a way of him or her engaging with them to say,
Mm.
hey, you know what? Whenever I have spare capacity, spare product, maybe it's 6 o'clock in the evening and I know you're all coming off the train, going
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
having had a long day at work,
Yeah.
and I might have stuff that I might get rid of for either for free or for a very, very little amount of money, right?
Yeah.
And it's a way of engaging, right?
Mm.
It's just a simple way of engaging.
Yeah. And for our audience, because I got it straight away, do you wanna explain why it's called shopping hood and what that where that comes from?
It's a play on Robin Hood, obviously, and of course, shop in your hood. So it's a kind of, I
Genius.
don't know, multiple ways you can look at it, and the idea that we're maybe stealing, not so much stealing, but taking away from the rich,
Yeah.
the big
Yeah.
brands, and giving it back to the community and to the local businesses is the thought behind it.
Yeah, well, it's certainly over the last few years, well, for as many years as I can remember, that the high street is dwindling, right? And more companies, and that's partly an effect of the pandemic, and also how people are shopping with just buying stuff online all the time with obviously Amazon and Deliveroo. But you can't beat that local community. I mean, particularly in London, where you don't even know who your neighbors are anymore. We
Yeah.
definitely need more of a sense of community, and something like this would be great in helping the local shops for sure.
And the thing is, we don't want to make it complex, right? We don't want it to be like, you know, take beautiful images, and write a description, turn it into some kind of localized e-commerce solution, right? It's not what we want. It's an engagement piece, right? It's like take a picture, guys. I've got loaves of bread, 10 of them. Who wants, right? And as soon as like the first 10 respond saying, I'll stop by in the next 5 minutes. That's it. Thank you very much, right? And it kind of perpetuates, I think, this kind of thought process, right? Um,
Mm,
and listen, and it's great, right? Because it's also like it might go out of date tomorrow, and so you've given it away, but it
yeah,
might bring someone in and they might buy another 5, 10 pounds worth of other stuff, right? So I think it really kind of I think it helps both sides on multiple levels without making it too complicated. And also, I think one of my key things, objectives, is not to use the data to
Yeah,
for selfish purposes, right? It's just
sure, sure.
one guy saying, I've got this, and would
Mm,
you like some? Like, that's
mm.
pretty much it.
Yeah, I think people are getting a bit sick and tired with all of that, like, yeah, and then all of a sudden you get a whole bunch of adverts and spam and all sorts of things, right? Because 'Cause they've kind of taken your data where you don't really actually realize what it is that you've done. So yeah, I mean, have you kind of tested this idea out? Have you spoken to your local high streets? What kind of feedback have you had, or is it still in the early stages of ideation at the moment?
No, no, I have. I've spoken to quite a few kind of, just when I go into get my hair cut, or to
I
places,
remember those days. Oh yes.
and I'll ask the question, right? Wouldn't it be nice, kind of thing? And look, they have spare capacity. Imagine again, like, you get, try, in your case, men, you get to go get your beard done, and look, there is spare capacity, right? They might not have a booking, or they're just sitting there, four or five hairstylists, right? And to just put it out there, 50% discount in the next hour, kind of
Yeah.
kind of a happy hour thing, but whenever they have spare capacity.
Yeah, and again, for the audience who's listening in, if you've got any comments on Shopping Hood, is this something that you would have on your mobile to support the community? I mean, it's like, why would you not, right? Because otherwise, every high street tends to look like every other high street, right? Because it's just um, all the big players in there, or nothing, which is even worse, just blocked up shops because no one's actually using the local community and supporting the local community. So there's something like that. One question when we were sort of having a discussion about this within the studio the other day was, there's obviously big players like Groupon who offer, specific coupons for, everyone from large organizations to smaller ones. How do you kind of counteract these larger, more established organizations with what you want to do as Shopping Hood?
I think again, it's going back to the kind of, you've got to be to a certain degree organized, tech savvy, uh, to get on a platform like that.
Mm.
Also, they're incredibly expensive to be on a platform like that. Amazon, you're paying, I think, up to 30% for a sale. Groupon, you're paying huge amounts. Anyone who's used a Groupon service will, especially when you go to like a Groupon dinner, for example, never take your wife tonight on a Groupon dinner, guys, right?
I've done
Because
that. They always stick me near the toilets.
right? And it's never quite as good as you think, right? Like I said, it's a big splattergun approach. Anyone can get on, if you make a sale, great. If not, it's okay. They're selling a platform, right? Whereas we're selling, hopefully, a relationship, hopefully, the desire to help your community both ways.
Yeah, yeah, totally. We have another comment for to look at here. Let's have a look. Okay, so Christina. So there's a club card by a local Chiswick calendar. Local businesses sign up for discounts. Okay. So I wonder, Christina, if that's like an app-based thing or just a regular card thing. I guess, yeah, that's a great question. Would this kind of, again, to appeal to people who aren't just purely sort of digital, could this be like a physical thing that they could sort of carry around in their wallets, which works within, all of the local shops that are part of that community?
I don't see why not. The
Mm,
only thing is, it's a then you would kind of, it'd be a passive thing where you'd walk in with your card and say, hey, I have this card, do you have anything? So it
yeah,
can most definitely work on that front, right?
yeah,
um whether it's a digital ID or in some kind of analog ID, I think it's almost irrelevant, right?
yeah,
uh the, you know Again, as I see it, it's a very, very simple thing. Going back to Christina's thought process, I think, Christina, you're 100% right about some of this stuff. We really our local communities and councils, and the government should be pushing this initiative, right? And facilitating it. In fact, it may be a great idea for Shop and Hood to not be for not for us to take it to the wide open market, but maybe to take it to, the 32 councils in in London, for
Yeah,
example, I think, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
get them to push it out, right? But
yeah.
it, I think the other thing is, you're looking at two slightly different approaches. In Shoppenhood, when it came to me, the idea was that the store would push this to their nearest and dearest to begin with, because that was the lowest hanging fruit.
Sure. Got it. Yep. Yep.
You see, and it kind of again perpetuates on its own, because the other idea is, if I engage with my local off license or laundromat, or dry cleaners, and this happens, I'm likely to tell my cousin who lives down the road, and my
Yeah.
friends,
Sure.
and grow
Yes.
that audience quite organically, right?
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
also at the same time likely to go to my local bakery and say, by the way,
Mm.
I've noticed you're not on Shopping Hood,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so it's a very organic, again, community-led
Mm.
initiative, right? For, you know, not for,
Yeah.
for the people, by the people kind of thing,
No, yeah, but exactly.
But
No, no, no. And one last comment. Again, this was something I was thinking of as well. Hey, Ria, there are apps out there that, such as Too Good to Go. And like you're saying, if you've baked a bit too much bread and it's coming to the end of the day. But I guess this is a combo of all of those different services together, right? Whereas obviously Too Good to Go is primarily around just you know getting rid of some of that excess rather than getting it to go in the bin.
yeah, and it's driving something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've seen a couple of questions, guys. If I can just go back to Manoj Sanjay's
Yeah.
question at
Sure.
420.
Look at this.
I was just
Flying
going to
in.
say that, Manoj, the reason people keep going to comparison sites is because every year, or every time you make a purchase, you want to check the best price in the market at that point in time. So that is really the reason any comparison site really works, as opposed to a one-off transaction. Because that one-off transaction, we know this again from the insurance world. Check your renewal kind of note that you get of the following year. I can guarantee you it's always higher and more expensive than if you go back to
Mm,
one of the comparison sites and get yourself a different quotes. So
mm,
I think the reason is for, the to keep the supplier honest, to be honest, but we all know that that's not the easiest thing.
yeah,
Profit always creeps in. So hopefully that
sure.
answers your question,
Yeah.
Manoj.
And look at this, the power of the crowd. You're even getting ideas for other names for your offering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Um, Let me also LinkedIn 428, too good to go.
yeah,
Absolutely. Again, that's very focused, of course, too good to go in terms of food and wastage. And again, it's a platform, and I don't want this to be a platform. I
got it.
don't. I want to deliver something that is gets individuals engaged, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that human touch is where Shopping Hood is very, very
Well, I
different.
have one last question, sort of time's ticking, and it's a great question, Barry, which is like, okay, so as with all lovely things, we obviously want to do great things for our society, etc. But at the end of the day, it's got to kind of wash its face as well. So, have you thought about what the business model would be for Shopping Hood?
Yeah, I think in terms of, again, speaking about, Barry's question, the most obvious, kind of in the world of matchmaking, right? Typically, there are two main models. There is the affiliate model,
Mm,
uh, right, where for every purchase, the 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 connector, i.e., the confused.com, gets a cut out of the sale, right? But that has to be completely digital, right?
yes.
Uh, this is, in my head, it's a subscription model, right?
Okay.
That the supplier, i.e., your baker and your hairdresser, etc., are paying a subscription a month to be on the platform. I think the user, the end user, personally, I don't think needs to pay
No.
anything,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. And
And
would you
and
take
again,
a cut of the transactions or just a flat fee?
No, because the transaction is a human interaction, right? It could be as simple as they walked in and at that point in time, there's a loaf
Oh,
of bread and
it'd be hard
some
to validate
service.
anyway, right? Yeah, if it was because of
Yeah.
the
And we
okay.
don't want it to be that.
No,
We
no.
totally want it to be an engagement
Yeah, I
piece,
like that.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
hopefully that's a thought
Yeah, no,
process.
that's great. And here's my best friend Anki. Anki asks, "Do you offer to offer rewards to customers who use the app?"
Uh, do we as if you will, the creators of Robinhood, uh, I haven't really thought about it to be honest on that part or that far maybe.
Yeah,
Um, Again, I'm a bit conscientious of turning this into some kind of scary, full-blown rewards
yeah,
program and
yeah.
collect your
There's quite a
points
few of
and
those out
redeem
there
them.
already, right? Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I'm a bit weary of that.
Yeah.
Uh, like I said, it's an engagement piece. It's a personal engagement, but I don't know. I don't know where this could go, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, this is the great thing with sort of, the early stages of ideate. Part of it's like experiment, hypothesis, see what the actual market wants, right? Rather than spending 2 years working on your business plans to find out no one's even, wanting those breads that you've made.
mm,
So yeah, no, it's sort of a little bit ahead, but not too far. So I think that's our time. Thank you so much, Tejas, for taking us through your wonderful ideas. And Anki, thank you very much for reminding us. I'm certainly going to keep a notebook by the side of my bed as well for any ideas that I come across that I can share with you in the future. So thank you very much for your interaction, Tejas. Wonderful ideas. We'll be getting back to you regarding next steps on those two, which is the process we have. And for anyone who's been listening to these live streams, is interested in becoming a nobody, getting involved, sharing ideas like Tejas has done today, then please head to our republic.com crowdfunding website, republic.com Nobody Studios, and yeah, get involved. Come and join us on our mission to create 100 startups in 5 years. Thank you very much again, people, and we'll do this all over again next week, same time, same place. Cheers now.
perfect. Thanks, Min. Thanks everyone for listening and partaking in this. Really appreciate it. And look forward to meeting some of you guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.